Okay, everybody. Hey, I'm here. Happy to be here today with Eric Quinn. He was a graduate of Central High School in Erie, PA. He was a 94 graduate. He played for the 93 Central Falcon football team. He was an all-state running back, first team all-state running back for Central. He also was a four-year starter in high school at the varsity level, went on to play at Division One Central State, and then finished up his football career at Edinboro University. Eric Quinn. Hey, EQ, what's going on, man?
Hey man, not much, man. Just happy to be here. You called, I answered. So here we are.
Yeah, we always been able to, since the days of the lunch table, man, we've been, telling stories and jokes and
Man, before that, man, shoot, me and you, especially when it comes to football, go way back to probably before I ever put on a pair of pads.
4 or 5 years old,
Yeah.
maybe
Yep.
even
It all
before that.
started. I mean, when it started for you, it started for me. So, you know what I mean? That's just like I feel like this interview was something that has come full circle,
Hmm.
you know.
So, won't we start off by telling everybody what city, what state you from, and then like tell a little bit about the neighborhood where you grew up in.
I'm born and raised Erie, Pennsylvania. Grew up, in different parts of the city throughout different times of my life. You know, the beginning, I grew up. When I was born, we lived on the east side on 17th Street. That was where, I made a lot of friends that, you know what I mean, I still call friends to this day, and that started to shape, everything that, my athletic career turned out to be.
Mhm.
Growing up on 17th Street, then I spent time from there, over in your neighborhood, over in the Woodlawn area. I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house, and, back and forth, all my life. That's where it all
Right,
started.
right. So did you grow up with both parents in the house, or did you have one parent, different siblings? Can you tell us a little bit about your family?
I had both. I had both parents. My parents, they were married, and separated actually. So that left me where I lived with my mother, but my dad was there. I had both of my parents, but we didn't live together. But didn't really seem to make a difference. My dad was always there up until he had his own trials and tribulations that happened in his life, and I was primarily raised by my mother.
Right. So how did you get into organized sports? I know you said you played a lot, like just street type sports, but outside in the playground and stuff like that. But how did you first get into organized sports?
I first got into organized sports, I think, growing up in the neighborhoods that I lived in, like the older kids in the neighborhoods, like, they played Bay City football, they played Bill Better Boys baseball. It was just like I just was following, I mean, it seemed like what the kids were doing in my neighborhood. It was like I seen, kids my age, kids a little bit older than me playing sports, organized sports and having success. And, I wanted that for myself. I started playing baseball, but well, it goes back a little bit, probably to when I was about 5 years old. The first sport that I ever played, I started off wrestling. Started wrestling at the Booker T. Washington Center, probably when I was about 5 years old. I did that, started doing that in the winter of, I don't know, 1980, 81, somewhere around that time.
Mhm.
Um, I started off wrestling, but then what actually happened was we moved from 17th Street down to the lower east side, down there near East High School.
Right.
Um, the neighborhood they called it Kingtown. So that was a pretty long commute, going from Kingtown to the Booker T. Washington Center back then, and me being so young. So my wrestling career was short lived, and from there I went on to start playing baseball.
Okay. When did you play football as a youth too? Did you get any play football a little bit as a youth, organized?
Well, all we did, man, similar to yourself, man, we just played football in the neighborhood, every opportunity we got.
Right.
That's what we did all day, every day, and we loved it. Um, I didn't get into playing organized football, with pads on. I remember, when I lived down there on the Lower East Side, I was lived close enough in the neighborhood to Hammer Mill Field where Bay City was, and it
Right.
was where I saw you, Dorian Hager, Pre Beeson, all those kids, kids that I grew up with and knew and played sports with, in the neighborhood all the time. And you guys, y'all started playing, y'all was padded up out there playing, and I was like, okay, I got to get out there. You know, at that point in my life, telling my mom it was what, like $25 to play Bay City
Right.
at that
Right.
time.
Right. Rough back.
She was like, now the way you be behaving in school, you ain't playing nothing. I'm not paying $25 for you to do nothing. So, I had to get my act together, and before I was able to play Bay City for the first time in the 6th grade, we played for the Dahlkemper Landscaping Steelers. What was that? The fall of '87, and that's where everything began for me.
Right.
I never played organized football before. I thought, I was just, I learned at an early age. I thought I was gonna just be able to step out there and be able to have success, and it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? I thought, just by birthright, I was a running back.
Right. Right.
We got out there, and I start, Coach Bill, when we played for the Steelers, he was like, okay. When we first started practicing, he was like, okay, I'm gonna give you a tryout at running back. So that didn't materialize because I couldn't remember the holes. I was having a hard time with that, remembering the holes, and
Right. Right.
coach got frustrated and was like, you know what? I got a perfect position for you. So put me on the offensive line, play guard. My first year playing organized football, I played guard and I played linebacker.
Okay. Who were some of the guys you remember from just a few names that played during your era for Bay City? Who you remember any of the guys that played during that era? In that
Uh,
junior, I think it was the junior league. The junior league. You remember any of the junior league players?
yeah, I remember. I remember the Bay City Bills. You know what I mean? At that time I was spending a lot of time in that neighborhood. All the kids from 17th Street and 23rd and Parade. Everybody that lived in that neighborhood started off playing for the Bay City Bills. And
Right.
I was one of those kids over there they used to practice over at the field on 21st and Parade. You know what I mean? So I was one of those kids that was like always at their practices, watching. And there was people like I remember Terry Hasbury, was a person that I remember standing out that played Bay City. Tick Hilliard, young people, Darren Beeson, they all played for the Bay City Bills, and they was, hard nosed.
Right.
They wasn't playing,
Right.
and I wanted to be like them. So that's probably my earliest, memory of seeing kids in the neighborhood that who stood out to me playing Bay City, and I wanted to be like them.
Right. So EQ, you go on to high school at Academy, correct? That's where you end up going to Academy.
Yeah,
And then as a ninth grader, you didn't end up playing JVs or freshmen like the rest of us. You end up starting varsity that year, correct?
yeah. I ended up starting varsity, but I played JV too. As a ninth grader, we went to camp and all that, and in the ninth grade, I hadn't played football since the 6th grade. Remember when we was playing Bay City, there was a weight limit.
Right, right,
So, when we playing in the 6th grade, I played that season, and I was at that time I was growing,
right.
so I was overweight, so I didn't play football 7th and 8th grade. So by the
Mhm.
time I got to the 9th grade, man, I was hungry. I couldn't wait to play again. I was hungry. We went to camp in the ninth grade, and I just had it set in my mind that I was going to do anything, whatever it took for me to get on the field. I didn't want to wait. I mean, my goal, I remember in the ninth grade, was to start at running back for JV, but like I said, I was hungry when we went to camp in the ninth grade. Mr. DeTulio, he saw something in me, and I remember him calling me into the cabin. We went to Camp Notre Dame. Players, we had our own cabins that we stayed in, and the coaches had their own cabins. So I remember I was called to go talk to Coach DeTulio in the cabin, and he was like, we're gonna start you at corner, on varsity for first game of the season. So I was just like ecstatic about that, because like I said, I hadn't played, and you know what I mean? So it gave me a lot of confidence to not have played football in 2 years, to go on to high school and actually start in ninth grade. I played JV too. Playing JV, I wanted to play running back. So playing JV gave me the opportunity to play running back, and, I guess hone my skills as a ball carrier, and, started at corner in the ninth grade, in ninth grade for varsity. So, I was pretty ecstatic, and, I was really feeling confident in myself at that time. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that.
Right. EQ, what you think? Because I know we went to camp that year. What do you think you showed them during camp? I know you've always been a hitter. So a lot of people don't know that. One of your best attributes is you love to hit and physicality of it. What do you think you showed them coming out in ninth grade? Like, man, he's a starter right now in ninth grade. Do you remember? What do you think it was? Mindset.
Probably, I would have to say probably just my instincts for physical play. You know what I mean? It was like that was when I first started playing football, I had a lot to learn. So what I mean, and I was pretty big as a kid for our age. What I mean, for our peer group. What I mean, I probably was probably a little bit bigger, or the same size, or probably a little bit bigger than most people in our peer group. So playing football for the first time, it was like, okay, only thing that I had working for me was to be physical. And, probably it was that, and when we got to the ninth grade, and we went to camp in the ninth grade, you remember our coach, Coach Bill, he had got the coaching job for the JV team when we was in the ninth grade.
Right.
So he had already, coached me, and, what I mean, probably, knew probably what I was best at. So I think probably it was just, having a nose for the ball and instincts to just be physical. Probably was the thing that stood out to the coaches, and being able to, I was pretty agile too. So, I mean, I was able to, be physical, and I was able to move around pretty good with it.
So 10th grade, get new coaches at Academy.
Yeah.
And they switched your position. I know you still play running back, but your defensive position switched. Tell me about your 10th grade year.
My 10th grade year, I think probably was, because in the ninth grade, I started off on varsity. I started off playing corner, what I mean? But as the season progressed, Coach DeTulio was like moving me around all around the field. You know what I mean? Just trying to put position to impact the game and have success. So I remember in the ninth grade playing linebacker. I mean, they put me at outside linebacker, and I was able to make a lot of tackles from that linebacker position. So I think in the 10th grade, it was just like, I was just at that time, but I was confident. I was confident. I felt like I belonged on the field with anybody that was in our peer group. I mean, anybody that on the field, and I was on the field next to them, I felt like I belonged. So, in the 10th grade, it was just like, my level of, being physical in my play, I think Coach Tarasovich and Coach Holland, they was just like, I mean, hell, we're going to put him at nose guard. I mean, I was physical enough to play nose guard at 160 pounds and, you know, fast enough to make plays. So I think that's where it all started. I mean, it was actually in the 10th grade, I started at middle linebacker. I was a starting middle linebacker. And when coaches was calling the defense, when they called the defense for the 52, I would go from the middle linebacker to the nose guard. So we was having so much success in that 52 that I pretty much stayed on the nose pretty much all game.
Right.
And, you know, another thing that contributed to my success because at playing nose guard was, you know, I wanted to play running back. And, you know, I had an attitude. I had attitude that I wasn't getting the ball. Dwayne Connors and I think Will Lyons was our starting running backs on varsity. So, you know what I mean? I was pretty mad that I wasn't getting the ball. So, you know what I mean? I was going out there trying to, you know, make somebody feel my pain,
right.
Playing nose guard. So it was just what people saw from me at playing nose guard was a bunch of that was just frustration from not getting the ball.
Right. So you your 11th and 12th grade year, you played mostly tailback, right?
Yeah.
They kind of took you off of defense a little bit, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I didn't like it. I mean, I didn't really in the beginning, you know what I mean? I wanted to, you know, I wanted to play. I wanted to be on the field, both sides of the ball. You know, I think probably where they would put me on defense was the main reason that I didn't play defense because it was like, okay, if I'm going to be starting running back, you know, they couldn't beat me up playing nose guard the whole,
Right.
you know, playing both sides of the ball, playing nose guard, then playing tailback, and then, you know, playing defensive back too, you know, which I probably wasn't that good at defensive back because I just didn't put the time in at that position to be successful at it. I wasn't really, I had the ability to play defensive back, but it really wasn't my cup of tea. I could have did it, but I think the coaches probably thought that, you know, for me to be the most effective at my position playing running back was just to keep me on one side of the ball. But, you know, I think where to play was probably the biggest, you know, concern for the coaches. And, you know, another thing that had me feeling some type of way because it was like, okay, you know, Mark Tate, you know, he was one of the players in our area that, you know what I mean, I admired wholeheartedly. You know what I mean? He was able to be on both sides of the ball. He played defensive back and he played running back. I felt like, you know what I mean, if he could do it, I could do it. But,
right.
You know, that's why he went to Penn State and I ended up at Central State because I wasn't like that doing both. So
yeah, he played both ways. Right.
Yeah,
right.
played both ways. He did both very well. And, you know what I mean? I felt like I could do it too, but no, I wasn't like that.
Right. Do you when you finally got the starting tailback spot and you know, in that offense they ran, you know, I formation, especially back then in the 90s, the tailback was, you know, was the man on the offense. How did you feel? How did that make you feel to really to know that, man, look, you know, I mean, I'm the focal point. You know what I mean? I'm getting the ball, I'm carrying the ball now. How did that make you feel?
You know, I wanted that responsibility. You know, I wanted that responsibility. You know, like I said, I felt like playing running back was my birthright, and I knew what came along with it, the responsibility and, you know, the focal point of, you know, the offense and, you know, and I wanted to be successful at it, you know, so, you know, I took it on. I took on the challenge. There were growing pains in 11th grade. You know, Coach Tarasovich, he used to really get on my case a lot, you know what I mean? From, you know, too much running lateral, sideline to sideline. You know, Coach Tarasovich was like, look, square your shoulders and get upfield. You know, so, you know, I went through some growing pains with that. And, you know, that helped shape, you know, what I became as a runner.
Mm-hmm. So do you think your time on defense, did that help you? Like, did that make you a more physical runner? Because like of the defensive stuff, history that you had?
I mean, I felt like, you know, I wasn't a very physical runner. You know what I mean? I felt like my biggest attributes playing running back was, my, agility and, my vision. You know what I mean? I felt like I was a physical player, but that didn't translate into me carrying the ball. You know what I mean? I felt like when I had the ball in my hand, my goal was to run away from people.
Like your speed was always a great attribute too.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't the fastest, you know what I mean? I think probably my vision and my agility was my biggest attributes. You know what I mean? I would never consider myself a speedster, although, whatever speed I did have, you know what I mean? That was developed from, growing up on 17th Street, from getting chased down by big kids in the neighborhood. One to mention that comes to mind, Mike Williams. You know what I mean? Anybody that's watching this interview probably, know who Mike Williams is and know about how fast he was. As a kid growing up, I used to agitate him and make him chase me. So, it was, whatever speed I did have was came from that, trying to run away from him, and I didn't have too much success for that. He caught me every time. So, I felt like I could run away from people. I wasn't trying to run over nobody. I was only 170.
So EQ, I know going back to the sophomore year, the academy was starting to turn around. Like, the team was starting to turn back around. And I remember going into the junior year, we was all really looking forward to that because we thought we was going to be good that year.
Yeah.
A lot coming back. What was your feeling like on the merger when they decided like we was going to come together and that type of thing? Did you have any feelings on that?
Well, it goes back to the ninth grade. In the ninth grade, originally when I was in the ninth grade, I had planned on going to Tech. But I was the only one planning on going to Tech. We all went to Wilson. Everybody that we went to Wilson with was like, we going to Academy. So it was just like, okay. So I gave up on the idea of going to Tech and decided to go to Academy. But when we went to Academy, I mean, if you can remember, at Academy, people, they probably have their own reservations or opinions about, Coach DeTulio, when he was, leading that program over at Academy. But to his credit, I don't think Coach DeTulio really had the luxury of developing the talent that he had coming through there. Mm-hmm. At Academy in the ninth grade, we came in at Academy, you pretty much was playing. Coming in the ninth grade, we all came in playing. Mm-hmm. And the talent retention at Academy, you had players that were on a team when we were in the eighth grade, and when we got there in the ninth grade that weren't on the team anymore. So, we had to, in the ninth grade, we had to get out there and, we had to put a team on the field. So, you know what I mean? It was like, we had, all of us, we had been on the field since we were in the ninth grade. So by the time we got to the 10th grade and 11th grade, it was just like, we wanted it. After, getting beat down and pushed around from, the years 9th and 10th grade, when we got to Central, it was just like, okay, we had enough. We ready to win, by all means, because we had all been, by the time we got to Central, we had all been starting varsity for 3 years.
Right. So people still talk about, first of all, tell me when you read that you was all state. How did you feel when you woke up and saw that you was all first team all state running back in PA?
Coach Holland, all our senior year, from camp, Coach Holland, when we were practicing, and I guess he was like really trying to build me up. We were having good practices and everything was looking good. And Coach Holland, he would like have conversations with me to the side and be like, this is going to be a big year for you. He was like, man, a big year. I think that you could be first team all state. It was just like, he saw that in me. I was like, didn't really believe it. Right. He would say it, but, I like I said, he was just trying to, build me up to that. And I guess, once my senior year came around and we start, the success we were having, I start feeling like, maybe Coach Holland, maybe he right. You know, maybe I am that good, you know,
Uh-huh.
because, you know, being, you know, first team all state, like I said, Mark Tate, he was a player that I admired a lot from
Uh-huh.
our area. You know what I mean? He made first team all state, but as a DB, you know, and he
Right.
made it as a DB. So, you know, for me to be able to make it at running back, you know what I mean, was just something like really far fetched that, you know, Coach Holland saw in me that,
Uh-huh.
you know, I didn't see in myself until, you know, we started having success my senior year. It
Right.
became reality, you know what I mean, as, you know, my stats started to pad up to what they were.
Mhm. So people still like when I go places, man, it's people that still talk about the 93 Central Falcons that year we had. And, how does that make you feel, man, to know like people still talking about something that you were able to accomplish as it that y'all was able, how you feel about that?
Well, you know, at this point in my career, you know, hey, anything anybody remember, man, is appreciated. You know what I mean? And anytime people, you know, they approach me or they talk about that, you know what I mean? It take me down memory lane. You know what I mean? To how, you know, how good it felt. You know what I mean? How motivated we were, you know, before the season started that year, how motivated we were to win. And, you know, I was interested to know how far we would be able to go.
Mhm.
You know, it's you know, it's like one of my proudest and best memories to be a part of that team, you know, and the success that we had.
Right. Which game do you think, which game or games from that year define like really how good that team was, you think? You had to look back at it. What are some moments or games you would say, man, okay, this one I knew we was really good, man.
Oh man, without a doubt, man. We went to Warren Harding. You know, up until that point, they were probably, you know, excluding, you know, prep, you know, teams that was in our area, you know, teams, you know, we all knew about prep, but I think Warren Harding was probably the best team that we played that we knew absolutely nothing about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and, you know, I remember coaches telling us that they played in a really good league down there in that area that they came from. And, you know, I remember the build up to that game,
Uh-huh.
the build up to that game. I don't remember. Did we play them first? No, yeah. We played Warren Harding first, then we played Vincent that next week. So, you know, and Vincent, you know, they were who they were. They were state champs the year before that, if I'm not mistaken. Or they Vincent, they had some good teams
Yeah,
during
Vincent
our
was
high.
always a good team. We always played. It was always a good game with us and Vincent.
Yeah, so our senior year, we played Warren Harding the week before we played Vincent. So you know what I mean? It was just like thinking back to, you know, okay, we got Vincent coming up, but we got this big game with Warren Harding that's supposed to be a good team. And, you know, and we definitely didn't want to go into that Vincent game because Vincent had beat us in 11th grade, our junior
Right.
year. They beat, and, you know, I didn't want to go into that game against Vincent our senior year, you know, after taking a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Because after they beat us in 11th, when they beat us when we was in 11th grade, that hurt. That hurt. That hurt. It still hurt to this day. That loss to Vincent when we were in 11th grade. So playing Warren Harding was just like, okay, this is going to be a big test. This is going to be a big test. You know what I mean? They end up the week before we played them. I think they had lost to what, the #2 ranked team in the nation, Cleveland St. Ignatius.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
were ranked high.
they played Cleveland.
Warren Harding was ranked in the top 10 of Ohio big schools at that time.
Yeah, and they lost to St. Ignatius the week before we played them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, you know, I was just unsure, you know, what was going to happen with us in that game. And, you know, when it came time to play, you know, we went down to Warren, Ohio. We played them there. Um, you know, we had our team, which we were probably about what, 35, 40 deep,
Right.
our team, you know, on varsity, you know. We went down there to their team. They probably dressed over 50, 60, 70. They had numbers. They had numbers. I'll never forget. We was on the field stretching, you know what I mean, warming up for the game. And here they came out with their team. They had, it looked like 100 people So then that's when the nerves they started at that moment. You know, I was just like, okay, this is something, you know, we never experienced before.
Mhm.
You know, and they were big. Those dudes, they were big. They were bigger than us by far. They were big. They were bigger than us. And you know, when from the time the game kicked off, you know, we didn't back down. You know, we took it to them. We was hitting. You know, our team, we were physical. Our 93 team, one of the biggest things that we had working for us is how physical we were.
Mhm.
And you know, we went down there and, you know, we pushed them boys around. I think they took us lightly, you know, and you know, us being in the mind state that we were, you know, we wasn't trying to take no loss. And I think, you know, we're going down there playing in that game to what, double overtime, coming out with a win. It was like, okay, from that moment on, it's like, oh, okay, you know, we ain't taking no more losses. We got this. We you know what I mean? Who gonna beat us? You
Right.
know, so it was then, it was like, okay, I felt like, you know what I mean, we were a team to be reckoned with.
Mhm.
You know, we had something, you know what I mean? We I felt like we arrived. You know what I mean? So let's see how far we go.
Right. So after the season's over, 13-1, Western finalists. Were you getting recruited after football season?
Yeah, I had some interest, you know, not a whole lot. You know, I had some problems qualifying for a scholarship. You know, back then, you know, you had to your SAT scores had to match up to a certain, you know, you had to qualify through your
Right,
SAT.
right, right, right. SAT, this,
Yeah.
that, right, right, right.
So, you know what I mean? I struggled with that. You know, I'll be the first to admit I wasn't the most studious student athlete. So, you know, the SAT gave me some problems. There was some interest. Um, I had some interest from Penn State, you know, they were recruiting me to play left corner. And I had some interest from Purdue and West Virginia, you know, but everything was all predicated on me, you know, being able to qualify for a scholarship, which never materialized. So I ended up uh, going to Central State of Ohio.
Okay, and was that a D1 program, Central State at that time? Or?
It was Division 1. It wasn't NCAA. It was Division 1 NAIA. And when I got there, they had just won the national championship the year before that.
Okay. Did
So
you did you notice a difference between like the level of play when you went to college, when you got to Central State? Did you notice like, man, this is way higher than my Central team or my high school? Or what was your mentality as you went into on campus? Same as your ninth grade year? Was you like, man, look, I'm going down here to start? What was your mentality as you went?
I mean, you know, it all began. I knew I was on another level, you know, from the time we got to Central State during you know, fall camp. Got down there, man, and you know, we had to do a fitness test. You know, we got down there and you know, did our fitness test, and I was just like, okay, I got a long way to go.
Mhm.
Got a long way to go. You know what I mean? Some of those guys that when I got down there were, you know, what part of the fitness test they put 225 pounds on the bar, and you know, they wanted to gauge, you know, see how strong you were by
Right.
lifting it out ever many times as you could. And, you know, I was looking at some of the guys that was getting down there doing that, pushing that weight up 10 to 15 times, and me, I couldn't do it not once. You know, and you know, that's one thing that I wish, if I could go back and change anything, I wish that I would have been able to develop more of a work ethic. You know what I mean? I don't think I really was exposed to lifting weights and stuff like that till I got to Central State. You know what I mean? I think, you know, in high school, you know, being one of the best athletes around, you know, I wasn't exposed to the weight room. Actually, the weight room probably would have gave me an allergic reaction back then. I was just trying to stay away from it as much as I could. And, you know, that was one of the things that probably held me back.
Right.
You know, I wasn't developed. I didn't have a work ethic that I probably should have had when I got to college. You know, I mean, I had to develop. I didn't develop a work ethic until I got to college. I didn't have that work ethic before I got there. So, you know, it was a detriment for
Right.
sure.
So I know you one of the guys you played with there was Hugh Douglas, right? And he went on to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
Tell me what you remember about him.
Oh man, Hugh. I remember me and Rob Barney. We went to Central State. We was reporting to camp. The day one, we reported to camp. I hadn't even never seen Hugh Douglas before. Didn't know who he was. One of the teammates, one of the upperclassmen that was in there in the dorm the day we reported. He came, me and Rob, we went to his room, we was just talking to him about, what to expect and, what goes on, trying to learn about the program and, what to expect from camp.
Right.
And, there was one of our teammates at Central State. His name was Yusuf Bird. He played defensive end also, so he got to telling us about, he's like, I'm going to tell y'all, right now, we got a player here. His name is Hugh Douglas. He's the best defensive end in all of college football. Best defensive end in all of college football. I'm just like, oh, what? Really? For real? Like, It was just like, felt like, he was just saying that, So Hugh, he got to camp. Like I said, once everybody reported, we had the team meeting and everybody got to see who everybody was. Here come Hugh. Never seen anything, there in Erie, there was nothing like Hugh walking around Erie. You know what I mean? It was, just, big and fast and strong and just all that, something that I had never been next to.
Right.
So, like I said, we did, the first day of camp, we started off with our physical fitness test. And, Hugh, when it was his turn to work out, we all was watching everybody, It was like,
right.
Everybody watching as we, did our fitness test. When he did his fitness test, he bench pressed 225 so many times. I was like, oh my God. He did 225 at least like 30 times. This was before fall camp, okay? And
right.
They tested us on that. He did that like 30 times, and then they timed everybody in the 40. And when Hugh ran his 40, only person I had ever seen run that fast in my life probably was Dietrich Gels.
And it's a big dude you're talking about. This is a big defensive end type.
Yeah, defensive end, probably about 260, 255, 260 pounds. Probably the fastest person I had ever seen in my life up until that point. Like I said, I had never seen anybody that fast. Probably Dietrich Gels is probably the only person that was even comparable to that kind of speed. Right. So, just what I observed from Hugh Douglas when I first got to Central State was that, he was a man.
Right.
He was a man. It was just like, okay, this is what it takes. This is what you gonna be up against. You want to go play, you want to be a pro, you want to be All-American and all conference and college and all that. Well,
this is right here.
Yeah, this is what embodies that. So, Hugh Douglas was definitely the first person that, I seen and played with that made it to the NFL. Which he got drafted 16th overall in the 95 draft by the New York Jets. And, that's how I became a fan, watching him, become rookie of the year playing for the New York Jets back then. So, people always ask me, how'd you become a New York Jets fan? Well, that's how, first person I ever played with that made it to the NFL got drafted by the Jets. And that's how I became a fan watching him. And he went on to become rookie of the year.
Right. You, how did your career materialize at Central State? Did you end up playing a lot down there, or how did that work out for you?
No, Central State, the culture down there was, if you come in as a freshman, you got redshirted. Everybody was redshirted. Don't matter who you were, what, nothing. Nobody. Right. Everybody got redshirted. So, me being, who I thought I was, I felt like I should have been playing, although I wasn't ready. By no means. I wasn't ready to play at all. So, you know, it hurt me. It hurt me a lot to not be playing, but at the same time, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to play yet.
Right. So did you end up the program ended up closing down there for some reason, right? Didn't it close down or?
Yeah, yeah. I stayed at Central State that year. I stayed at Central State, you know, for that season. I got there that fall, stayed the whole season, went through the off-season program, went through spring ball and all that. And you know, there have been whispers, you know, I mean, when we left Central State for the summer, you know, there was, you know, some whispers that, you know, they were going to, you know, be, you know, eliminating the football program. And, you know, so it was that summer where I started the process. You know, I had been recruited, you know, once, you know, I didn't qualify for a Division I scholarship. I was being recruited by Slippery Rock and Edinboro and IUP and all those schools in the PSAC. But, you know, I had some contact, you know, with the Edinboro coaches. So that summer, when there were whispers of, you know, the football program being resolved at Central State, I had some contact with the coaches that summer to, you know, transfer to Edinboro. You know, so I had put the paper and I started the process of trying to transfer. But what ended up happening, you know, I had withdrew from Central State. I had withdrew and everything. So what had ended up happening was they ended up not canceling the program. You know, I mean, they went for one more year. So I had sat out that semester while I was in transition to transferring to Edinboro. So the fall of '96, you actually didn't play. I sat out and, you know, ended up going to Edinboro the winter of '97.
Okay, and then you finished your career at Edinboro?
Yeah, I finished my career at Edinboro. You know, I played at Edinboro 3 years. You know, never got a chance to start. You know, at the same time, I don't think, you know, my attitude was in the right place. You know what I mean? There were some growing pains that I experienced there too. You know, I felt like I should have been playing more. You know, they were trying to bring me along. You know, they were trying to bring me along, and you know, I felt like I should have been playing more. And, you know, I mean, my attitude wasn't in the right place, and it hurt me there. You know, I played at Edinboro, and I had some success. And you know, so I ended up, you know, playing 3 years there, and, you know, I got to a point to where, you know, the program overall, we weren't having a lot of success, you know, 3 losing seasons, you know, so I got to a point where it was just like, okay, I think I want to just graduate and, you know, you know, move on, you know, from playing football. And, you know, that's how my career went.
Right. What position did you end up playing at Edinboro? Was you playing running back?
I played running back.
Oh, okay.
Yep. You know, I had a couple people ahead of me. You know, but when I will say, when I did have the opportunity to play, when I was given my opportunities to play at Edinboro, I produced. I mean, when I had my chance to carry the ball, I found the end zone.
Right.
You know, so that, you know, I struggled with that and felt like I should have been given more of an opportunity. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, I when it didn't happen the way that I thought that it should have happened, I just shifted my focus to graduating and, you know, moving on to whatever life had to offer.
Right. So a couple more questions for you, EQ. But now, like, when you look at the football in Erie, like, it's only one team now, right? Erie High School.
Yeah.
What are your memories of the Metro League when you played? Like, all the city rivalries and the games that you played. What are your memories of that?
Well, I feel like the kids that's in high school in Erie today, you know what I mean? They missing out. They missing out, you know what I mean? I think the Metro League that we played in, it was awesome. You know what I mean? All the schools played each other. You know, that's how you got to know who was who, you know, because everybody played each other.
Right.
I always thought it was a terrible thing that they absolved the Metro League the way that we knew it. And, you know, since I've been living in California, I haven't really seen a lot of high school football in the area, but you know, what I mean, I've always, you know, kept tabs on, you know, and was able to read in on, you know, what was going on. You know, after I left, you know, after I got out of college and all that, you know, Veterans Memorial Stadium had gone through some changes. You know, they added turf.
Uh,
You know, they added turf. And, you know, the Metro League that we played in, you know, it wasn't no turf. It was all grass, rain, sleet, hail, or snow. You know, we had to endure the conditions. And on top of that, you know, the field, the sidelines in Veteran Memorial Stadium that we played in was concrete. So, you know, I mean, I was always envious of the fact that, you know, I mean, the kids that played after me, they had turf field to play on because I seen some of them astronomical numbers that them kids was putting up. You know, I mean, I felt like had I been afforded that opportunity to play on the turf field, my numbers would have been crazy.
mm-hmm.
You know, for one, because like I said, going back to the beginning of the interview, Coach Tarasovich was coaching me to square my shoulders and get upfield.
Right.
You know, and you know, basically all the runners in that time, you know, before they added turf, you know, nobody wanted to hit that sideline in Veterans Memorial Stadium. You know what I mean? It was gonna be a price to pay. You got hit on the sideline on that concrete, you know. So I think most of the runners that came up that I watched were all upfield runners. You know, it wasn't too much hitting the sideline in the stadium. And I think once they added the turf, you know, a lot of those kids they were able to do that. You know, a lot of my statistics and yards that I got came in spite of I didn't want to hit that sideline. So
Right.
I'm gonna square my shoulders and get upfield. But had I had the opportunity to get outside, you know, I probably would have broke some national records.
So EQ, you had a good relationship, man, with another Erie legend, man, Mr. Woody Thompson. Can you just briefly talk about Woody for us a little bit?
Yeah, you know, Woody, you know, was very instrumental in my life. You know, he played a big part in who, you know, pretty much who I am today. You know, Woody, he was in a relationship with my mother for some years, you know, and you know, like I said, you know, I always had both of my parents. You know, my dad was still around. My dad still played a big, vital role in my life. You know, despite the fact that you know he and my mom they knew that they weren't going to be together. So, you know, Woody he took on a role like, or I like to call it, he was like a mentor. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, you know, see, you know, my relationship with Woody Thompson as a like a father and son type relationship, but you know, it wasn't like that. You know, Woody more like a big brother. You know, at the time when I was in high school, junior high and high school, you know, and parts of my elementary school, you know, days, you know, my dad lived out of town. My dad, he lived in Norristown, Pennsylvania, all the way up until I graduated from college. So, you know, my dad, he wasn't around all the time.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? I think, you know, Woody, what he did, you know, taking an interest in me, you know, I give him all the credit in the world. And, you know, I'm always in debt to him, a debt of gratitude for, you know, I mean, he taught me a lot. You know, he taught me a lot. He, you know, tried to show me, you know, things that, you know, probably were best for me. You know what I mean? You know, and it's pretty much, you know, I was raised to once I got a certain age, you know, I mean, my parents, they pretty much was like, okay, you old enough to make your own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Some of the things that Woody tried to turn me on to, you know, I went against, you know, I mean, I made my own decision to go against, you know I mean, what, you know, some of the things that he was trying to tell me that I later on and to this day, you know, can't do anything but say, you know I mean, he was right about a lot of things, man. You know I mean? Woody Thompson was a great guy. You know what I mean? And he deserves a lot of credit for the man that I am today because he played a big role and took a vested interest in me that, you know what I mean, that I'll ever uphold his honor and respect. And, you know, hopefully I get to see him again, you know what I mean, to thank him again.
Right.
the role he played in my life. I'm getting kind of emotional now because, I didn't really get a good chance to say goodbye to him.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. Woody, not in all of our lives, man. Way more in your life. But he
Yeah.
was always there for all of us, man. All of us that played at Academy, man. We used to have to come home. We would go to your house sometimes, man, and Woody be waiting on us saying, Mo, hey man, you got to carry out that fake. And Eric, you got to do this. And Rob, you got to do this. And Jeff, I seen you doing this. And he was
Yeah.
always there for us, man. You know what I mean?
He exposed us to things and told us things and mentored us on things that just made us want to be better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Woody was a full grown man. You know what I mean? And he would hang out with us, take us. You remember he used to take us to Steve Meadville scrimmage. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Before
all over the place. Yeah.
he used to
333
take,
team.
he used to take us. And made us just want to be better, man. And I wish I had the opportunity to tell him how much I appreciate him for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So E, man, before we wrap up, first of all, I want to say thank you, man. It's always good to catch up with you, man. We've been knowing each
Man,
other since we was
Mo, it
2
ain't
years
about
old,
nothing.
man.
Oh, you my guy, man. You and always, man, going back to when we was children, you always embody everything that the characteristics of what a leader should be, man. And you know what I mean? I respect you for that. And you know what I mean? I feel like the community in Erie is blessed to have you be part of the community. You know what I mean? Having you as a coach or just having you in the school system. I don't know if the community, if they know how good that they have it to have somebody like you in the community. You know what I mean? And and I respect what you're doing. You know what I mean with the interviews and stuff like that. Like I watched the interview with Tony Roby this morning. You
Mhm.
know, Tony Roby, great player. Don't know him personally. Always knew of him. It was great to be able to hear his story. His background. Coach Buffalino, be able to hear his background, and all the other people that gave us the opportunity to get a deeper look into who these people were that was around us. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
Buffalino, these coaches, Coach Tarasovich, you know, what you're doing right now, man, giving us an opportunity to see who these men were. You know what I mean?
Right.
From a grown man's perspective, you know what I mean? We took it for granted as children to have these people in our lives, man. And I respect you for giving us the opportunity to see who these people were that, took time to, invest some time in us to, have us grow on to be good, great men and, good fathers and people in our communities.
Right.
It's a
So E,
great, keep it up.
right. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That means a lot coming from you, E.
Yeah, man.
Before we wrap up, it's some kids growing up, man, on 17th Street. There's some kids growing up there out there on Woodlawn. There's some kids growing up there on East 18th Street, the places where we came up at. Give them a little advice from your perspective before we wrap up today.
Man, the best advice that, I can give, especially anybody who has aspirations to be, successful in athletics, the best advice that I can give you, man, is give your academics, focus on your academics. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're gonna have to fall back on. That's the only thing you're gonna have to fall back on. And you're gonna need that to take you to where you want to go. Work hard, work hard to become the athlete that you want to be. Put the time in. Put the time in. Spend that time in the weight room. Spend that time getting up in the morning, running, and making sure you in shape, making sure you prepared to go out there and be the best that you can be. Put yourself in position to be whatever it is that you envision for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had somebody, in Woody Thompson telling me the same thing. I didn't listen to everything, but if I can, offer some advice, and it only reaches one person, then I feel like I've done my part.
Right. Thanks for that, E. And everybody today, this was Eric Quinn. Once again, he was all-state running back at Central High School, part of the 93 Central Falcon team. Also, he was a 94 graduate of Central High School, went on to play at Central State and Edinboro University, an Erie legend, Mr. Eric Quinn. Thanks, Eric.
All right. Thanks for having me, Mo, man. It was fun.
Yes, sir. Good seeing you, man.
All right, man.
All right.